I hope you don't curse like that on the podcast.
I do.
Because this is a PG. This is a PG .1.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Top 5 Gaming Podcast, Episode 8. It's been a little while, hasn't it? I'm Austin. We got Casey here. As always, we got Ben. Ben's in the house. It's been a little while. This episode is going to be...
anything like Corey in the house?
Of course. It's exactly like that.
Okay, because fuck that show.
I don't know that show at all. I'm sorry, show I don't know. To disparage you.
Don't worry. I doubt many people, even if they did watch this, would support that show.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that, Casey. We don't want to alienate our 10 listeners, or much less than that, maybe.
10, don't flatter yourself, Jesus.
Yeah, well, we're averaging like, I don't know, 27 views on all of our things now that I look at it.
With 8 dislikes.
Of course. So, this episode we're going to be doing game design choices, like our favorite game design choices that developers make. How would you say that, Casey? Is that Right? Isn't that what we're doing?
I misunderstood this one.
What did you understand it as?
I was doing top 5 design choices that I support, even if most people don't like them.
Oh, okay. Well, I think most people like the ones that I picked.
Okay. Well, then I guess this will be a dichotomous one.
That'll be fine.
Daikon radishes, you say?
Yeah. That's exactly what he said. Good ears, Ben. Hey!
Look at those things.
Yeah. So, Casey, you pick things that you think that people don't like, but you do, right?
Yep.
Okay. So what was your number 5 there?
You go first.
Okay. My number 5 is Hidden Treasures. Some generic-ass shit. But in general with video games, like... Okay, so like collectathons, like Banjo-Kazooie, I liked just going into all the nooks. It was like cathartic or whatever to try and find every little one of those little notes or whatever that you could pick up.
Oh yeah, the notes.
Yeah, and then in all of those like open world games, like I don't know, Elder Scrolls and The Witcher, like The Witcher had side quests pretty much everywhere that you could do, and some of them would turn out to be like amazing. And then there was like Elder Scrolls kind of things where, I don't know, like in Skyrim, there's this one dog that comes up to you outside of one of those towns, and you can do a side quest, but it's all optional shit. I just like rewards for exploring, and that's usually like my favorite part of a lot of open world games, the exploration stuff. And we talked about Zelda already on this podcast, but that's my favorite thing about this Zelda game is that there's little things you can do, little nooks, like little Korak seeds you can find, or shrines just about everywhere. I
guess.
I don't know. I
wouldn't exactly call those like fun collectibles, though.
Well, it's something to do. Like, there are a lot of games that have like big open worlds, but just like jack shit in them, like Uncharted. Or at least what I played of Uncharted, which isn't much, really. But I couldn't stand how, like, there were these kind of big environments, and there was hardly anything in them. Like, you were just supposed to walk through them.
I mean, Uncharted's not really, like, an open-world kind of game, though.
Yeah, that's true. But there are, like, little nooks in there that I was, like, trying to find anything, and there wasn't really anything. Like, it didn't reward me for exploring. All that it rewards you for doing is moving forward in the game. Yeah. And then sometimes like these hidden treasure things, like with those side quests, can add more backstory or character development. Like in the case of The Witcher, there are a whole bunch of those side quests that added story for like Geralt, and a whole bunch of there was this baron that you found out like his backstory, and you can optionally find his wife and repair their marriage and a whole bunch of shit like that. And then, like, there's a whole bunch of cool hidden treasures for RPGs. Like, you can find, like, hidden gear, like those optional bosses that are in Final Fantasy VII are pretty cool. And, like, even in the normal Zelda games, you had, like, those heart pieces that you could find. if you like
Uh-huh.
did some extra stuff. I don't know. I just think that if you're gonna make like a big world or an interesting world to explore, then you gotta have some kind of hidden treasures in like all those little nooks and crannies.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Casey,
What?
what's your
What?
number 5? Huh?
My number 5 is difficulty options.
Difficulty options. Oh,
Yes.
okay. A lot of people, you're right. A lot of people don't really like these. Have you heard the people that feel a certain way about difficulty options being added to like Dark Souls or something?
Yeah, actually, it's weird because I think there's certain niche titles where there doesn't need to be a difficulty because that's kind of the appeal of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But usually my issue is like on the other end of things where like Kirby's Epic Yarn or something where it's just too easy.
Yeah.
Like,
You'd like to make it a little bit harder.
Yeah, I miss the days when back in the SNES days, like almost every game had like a difficulty toggler where you could go from like easy to medium to hard.
Yeah.
And not that you had to do it or anything, but it just it helped fine tune the experience a bit more for you.
Yeah.
And it's a shame a lot of modern games don't really. I mean, usually it's mostly Nintendo that's like foregone difficulty, like switchers, but it's just a shame that there's not more games that like sport that.
Yeah.
Granted, it'll be a little hypocritical of me to say because I do think that Dark Souls or those Souls games should stay hard, but I feel like those games carved a niche for themselves because of that like difficulty, and they don't need to like dumb themselves down for that. But,
Yeah, it's an interesting thing with Dark Souls because some people are like, well, that's the experience. That's like the story of Dark Souls is you dying a whole bunch of times, learning like the move sets for the enemies and, getting better at the game or whatever. But then
Yeah.
there's the argument like, oh, there's some interesting things in Dark Souls that aren't, fight related or like, for something that maybe a more casual gamer would want to experience but just couldn't because they couldn't get to that point in the game. So that
Yeah.
it might be valuable for them to have an easy mode or whatever. And like some people think that might take away from their game experience or something, but I don't think it does. I mean, all you have to do is just not hit easy mode, just play on the normal ass mode,
Yeah.
And then another thing with like these difficulty things, I think that some games make it so like there's like the easy way of doing difficulty where enemies take more hits, they do more damage, you have less
Oh, yeah, that
HP or
sucks. I
something
hate
like
that
that.
shit.
Yeah, that seems like, I don't know, just a little bit lazy. But then there's some games that like change the AI or something like that where it's like more aggressive or
It would also be nice if there was a better reward for beating things in difficulty, like in a higher difficulty.
Yeah, there are some games that you get like better loot if you're on a higher difficulty, right?
Yeah. Well, and even like again going back to like SNES, a lot of games, Contra in particular, would withhold the best ending unless you beat it on the hard mode.
Wow, I didn't know that. Well, it makes a lot of sense though.
Yeah.
Those games are pretty punishing.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I'll admit it's totally hypocritical. I don't see Dark Souls I don't see games like the Souls games like needing the easy setting in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just because I think that that's kind of, I don't know,
Yeah, it's
going
not-
against the spirit of it.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I mean, if I had to choose between all games having like an easy, medium, hard mode or not, I would still wish for the difficulty option, just because it would certainly give me a bit more of a fun time.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that you like that kind of game design choice because usually whenever I see you play a game, it's like you gotta go with hard mode. It's like, I don't know, it's almost like an ego check for you. And me too sometimes,
Thanks there.
whenever
Thanks
you
there, buddy.
whenever you see it like the options, you're like, fuck it, I can do it on hard, whatever.
Well, generally speaking, when I do that, it's because experience, at least, has taught me that normal is just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Like, normal for most games for me is just a little too easy.
Yeah.
But there are some games where when they say like Dungeons of fucking Endless, where they're saying easy, and that's
Yeah, that's a lie.
that's a straight up lie.
Yeah. And then I can kind of see why you'd like that design choice, just for people that you know that aren't gamers that might want to try a video game, you know? Like,
Yeah.
sometimes there are people that just don't play a lot of video games, but you want them to experience something about it, like the way that the character moves, or the story, or the aesthetic, or something like that, and you don't want them getting, like, a stick rammed up their ass every 5 minutes, you know?
Bend over. If you're going to play this game with me, you got to get this up the ass.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think I think I'm just a little bit like embittered by Nintendo, because they used to like, well, actually no, they didn't really do difficulty options, but I'm bittered by this whole philosophy of theirs of like like fun for everyone kind of deal.
Yeah, they're trying to be all encompassing for the casual audience.
Yeah, and but they like try and say that even the hardcores can like find challenge and shit if they like are trying to 100% it or whatever.
Yeah, kind of like Mario 3D World.
Yeah, there you go. And I just feel like if you're going to try and please everyone, you're ultimately going to miss a spectrum of people.
Yeah,
like as much as they try and cater to like both audiences, if you're going to please the casuals, odds are good you're not going to fully please the hardcore.
Yeah, I took this entrepreneurship class in college, and one of the things that my teacher would always say is like, don't try to be all things to all people, because then it just kind of like waters you down. Like, try and have like a really specific audience that you're trying to cater to. And I think
the gym.
Sorry,
go on. No, you first.
Okay, and I think that that's going to be like the future of video games. Now we have like a saturated market where there are so many games coming out. I think it's like 100 on Steam or more a week.
Jesus.
Yeah, so like I think that game developers are gonna have to really start focusing on like niche audiences or like very, very specific audiences if they want to be successful.
I remember the Gymquisition at one point, sponsor us, made a point that one of the Gymquisition's videos was on how Dark Souls or the Souls games are so successful because they carved out a niche audience for themselves.
Yeah, that's true, I think. And I can't wait to play Dark Souls 3.
Me too.
On that. And then, like, prime example of that is, like, The Surge, that game that came out recently. You know, definitely in a Dark Souls vein, and it's gotten, like, some popularity just because people want more of that difficult, like, high skill ceiling game.
Yeah.
But, of course, that's not for everybody.
Right. Well, and like I said, that's what, I mean, ultimately, I still think a toggler is a great idea just because I feel that that's a better way to try and please everyone.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Yeah. So, were you done with your number 5?
Yeah. Hey, Ben, what's your number 5 of whichever topic we're doing?
I don't think he has a list. And he might be gone.
Wait, what?
I think you scared him off, Casey.
I'm Ben.
Hello, Ben. So, my number 4, speaking of Demon Souls and Dark Souls.
We weren't talking about that.
Yeah. Supposed to lose battles that are winnable, I think is a really cool game thing. Because, like, there are a whole bunch of supposed to lose battles in, like, RPGs or whatever, where, like, you know, the final boss will come down in the beginning of the game and show you that he's, like, a badass, or there's, like, some dragon or something that you end up fighting later on in the game, and you're like, oh, shit, I just got my ass handed to me. And usually they feel like they're supposed to lose battles or whatever. But in Demon Souls and Dark Souls, in the beginning, like, in, like, the tutorial area, there's like a boss character that you end up encountering. So in Demon Souls, you're supposed to like die to him.
Yeah, he fucks your shit up in like 2 hits.
Yeah, he fucks your shit up. And then like it just says you died, and then you spawn in the Nexus or whatever. But you can beat him, and it's only for people like, I mean, it would be very unlikely for somebody who has never played Demon Souls before to beat that boss or whatever. But it's possible, and when you do, you retain your like your human status whenever you go to the Nexus. I just thought that it's like I don't know. It's a really cool thing that's possible with some games, and I think that more games should do it.
Well, and therein shows like skill on the part of the developer if it's not just like a giant middle finger "fuck you, can't beat it" thing, but rather just something that can be beaten with enough work and skill.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what the next point that I was going to make. That like beating the boss is only possible with like mastery of the game mechanics, which is like it's it's like a measure by which you can tell if a game has a lot of depth or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, compare that to like a lot of JRPGs with a supposed to lose fight where it's just virtually impossible because they
numbers, yeah.
The stats are ridiculously above you.
Yeah. So it's more interesting with a game that's skill based. I mean, of course, with Demon Souls and Dark Souls, you can level up, and that helps a lot. But like
Breath of the Wild, technically.
Oh yeah, Breath of the Wild. You can apparently go straight to Ganon. I mean, that would be absolutely insane. I wonder if anybody's done it.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they have. I think I've seen a couple like videos of that.
God, that's insanity.
Pretty sure I've even seen someone like beat Ganon with a chicken, or at least they like brought a chicken over.
The cuckoos or whatever, and they swarmed him. That's cool. I gotta see that. But yeah, I don't know. I think that would be a cool mechanic for a lot of skill-based games to have where players that are really good at it can beat like a boss that's supposed to be lost.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wish I could remember what game does this, but I know for a fact that there's a game out there where it has like a supposed to lose boss at the start, right?
Yeah.
And it's a boss that it's like actually the final boss of the game, but he just shows up at the start.
Mm-hmm.
And you can in fact beat him with enough like frustration, tears, and effort.
Yeah.
But doing so just ends the game early. Like that's your reward. It's like, well, you beat me. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we're done.
That's good for speedruns.
Yeah, it is, but I'm pretty sure if that was my reward for all that effort, I would just be like, fuck you.
Yeah. Casey.
What?
What's your number 4?
Lives.
Lives. Like, as in, like, you have a number of lives for...
Yep.
Okay.
A lot of people nowadays do not like the concept of lives. They think it's an antiquated concept because...
Now you can save games and stuff or whatever.
Yeah, and I like cite like Rayman, or I cite like I'm in fucking court.
Is it an MLA format or Chicago?
Oh God, you just brought me back to fucking AP English. Fuck that shit. Oh, AMA format. Fuck off. Welcome to the Tangent Podcast. Anyway, I refer to stuff like Rayman Origins and stuff like games that have abolished lives, and now you just like retry at the start of an area or whatever.
Yeah.
As opposed to like the start of a level or a checkpoint or whatever, and if you lose all your lives, you have to go all the way back or something.
Yeah.
And that works for Rayman Origins, I think. But a lot of people nowadays have just been like, well, we want every game to be like that. We want to just be able to restart then and there. You know?
Yeah.
But I think there's value in a live system if done correctly. Like it's been a long time since a Mario game and most of this is just going to be Nintendo related because I think Nintendo games are still to this day the only ones that occasionally like have lives in them.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. I can't really think of many others that aren't Nintendo.
Yeah. Well, and it's a shame because even Nintendo nowadays doesn't really do like the live system correctly because you've played 3D World, you know how fucking like insanely easy it is to get to like 999 lives.
Life inflation.
Yeah.
Until it's just the last area.
Yeah. And I mean, you know what, granted, you'd need like half of them for that last area, but
yeah.
Nonetheless, for most of the game, it just makes you wonder why they're there.
Yeah.
Personally, I like I miss the days of like Donkey Kong Country where you got lives. If you died, you go back to a checkpoint, and if you lost all your lives, you go back to your last save point. Because I do think that there needs to be like a punishment for failing at a level.
Yeah.
And like, and some will argue that just going back to your last checkpoint in a level is punishment enough. But I personally like, I nostalgically remember the sense of urgency that I got from like worrying about how many lives I had left to do like a difficult section.
Yeah.
Because I mean, lives used to be lives used to be so important, and you used to like place emphasis on, I gotta store my lives, I gotta save them, because I gotta like, if I fail, I gotta go all the way back to the save point. And there are games that like went way too far with that, like Donkey Kong Country 2. There's not enough save points to excuse the failures.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a balance you can strike where you can like give players that sense of like agency and work and like stress in a positive way,
Yeah.
while also making it fair.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like these new Nintendo games, like these new Marios, they have a life system, and you probably haven't like lost all your lives, but I have.
Oh.
And now the consequence for that in most of these games is like in the middle of a Mario level, you'll hit a checkpoint, and if you start the level again, you'll start off at that checkpoint. If you lose all your lives, you just start off at the beginning again with like 4 lives or something like that.
Right.
So there's not much of a consequence, like you were saying, with like as compared to Donkey Kong Country, which
Well, and there's a fine line between like unfair and like fair consequences, if you will.
yeah.
But I do think that it's there. I do think that there's a balance you can strike, and it does make it more rewarding in a sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of this life stuff probably came from like arcade games, if I had to take a guess, because it's a good
Totally.
structure for those kinds of games, and then I guess that just brought its way over to the console world.
Yeah, totally.
And I do see the value in like adding pressure to players with the life system. Like
Right.
I don't know, it adds more weight to the thing that you're doing. But yeah, that's not going to be for everybody. It's kind of like that difficulty talk that we were having. Like some games are meant to be played by by like more casual players, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, hell, there's like something you could just do for difficulty toggling right there. Like, are there lives in place? Yes or no?
Yeah. Or you could just give a whole bunch of extra lives to the people that aren't that great. Or, yeah, you're right, you could just get rid of them altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my number 3 for this list is asymmetric co-op.
You love that shit.
Yeah, it's been really great. So Casey and I played Affordable Space Adventures together, and I think we talked about it a little bit on a previous
Actually,
episode.
no, we didn't.
We didn't? You were surprised that I didn't put it on my top Wii U list.
Yeah, but did we speak of that when we were doing it?
I think so. I don't remember. But
We've done like 500 episodes. I can't remember all these.
Yeah, there's too many. We haven't even gotten double digits yet.
Oh God! Like, what episode is this?
Number 8.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So Affordable Space Adventures is, I guess, like we were saying, is a Wii U game that one person is playing on the Wii U gamepad and is acting as the engineer. Like, you'll put power into different parts of a ship, and then the other player is controlling, like, piloting the ship with a Wiimote. And it's a pretty neat concept, and one thing that I think that this kind of gameplay does really well is it adds a lot of replayability to the game. So Casey was driving and I was the engineer, so we could easily have just as good of a time playing through it again, but just switching roles.
And yet we didn't.
We didn't. And then another really great example of this asymmetric co-op is Rayman Legends.
Ah, yes.
Also for the Wii U. The Wii U, like, I think was totally underutilized, but these 2 games were the best games at doing this asymmetric co-op.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I mean, Nintendo Land had a few like
Yeah, that's true. Nintendo Land
things.
has some stuff. But Rayman Legends, you were talking about Rayman Origins with the life system, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't remember about Rayman Legends with the life system, but my point was that you have one person that can be just using the gamepad to manipulate the environment, and the game was designed in a way that there was a bunch of stuff you could manipulate at almost any time during the game. So,
Yeah.
like, you could, like, touch enemies or something like that, or, like, find little hidden treasures that the person that was just platforming couldn't find. But there were
Or
also...
the rhythm games.
Yeah, there were like rhythm games that you'd have to engage with a little bit, but then there were also like a whole bunch of interesting ways that you could manipulate the environment. Like there were these little sections where a maze would pop up on the screen, and you could tilt the maze up and down,
Yep.
left and right with your gamepad, and then the person that was platforming had to coordinate with you to get through it.
We should play that sometime.
Yeah, that was one of the best like things about it. And then another thing that asymmetric co-op does really well, especially with Rayman Legends, is that it allows people of different skill levels or different like, you know, things that they're good at to do that thing that they're better at. So you could play together with somebody that maybe wouldn't be so good at platforming, but is really good at like management kind of stuff.
Right.
Which is kind of like what my wife and I did together. And then
I think my favorite... Oh, go on.
another thing about this was this asymmetric co-op is kind of it's also in a lot of RPGs that are played together, like MMOs and stuff like that, where you have
that's true.
like you have a tank and a healer and a DPS, where they're all doing their own separate roles. And some people might be good at tanking or healing or DPS, but there's different skills involved with all of those.
Right.
So I guess that's one reason why I really like MMOs or those like co-op RPGs, is that we can do different stuff together and have
Monster
different
Hunter, man.
roles. Yeah. Monster Hunter is a little bit like, it's not quite as asymmetric, but you do have those different weapon types and they're good at different things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I just, it reminded me of that when you said it.
Yeah. I mean, it's true.
I think my favorite asymmetric co-op is Bomb, or Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to put that on this list. That was so good. And for anybody that doesn't know, what is that game, Casey?
I don't know.
All right. So you...
Okay, like two people play. One person's on a computer. One person, ideally, is holding like a bomb disarming manual.
Like
and the person
print
on
it
the
out.
computer has, huh?
Like print it out or on like
Yeah.
an iPad or something. So like not even looking at the computer screen.
Not having to deal with loading each page like we did.
Yeah. Print that
But
shit
yeah,
out.
Oh, go on.
No, I was just telling them if they're gonna play it, print it out. That's way better.
Yeah. One person's disarming the bomb. One person's giving instructions on how to disarm the bomb. Neither can see the other's viewpoint, so one person can only look at the manual. One can only look at the fucking bomb itself. Bombs keep changing up on you, and you have to unlock, and you have to not only do you have to understand these complex rules involved around disarming a bomb, but you have to be able to explain them adequately to your partner, who doesn't have access to the actual spoken rules. I mean, written rules.
Yep.
And it just makes for an excellent menage of fear, panic, rage, sheer delight,
Yeah.
complex multitasking.
Yeah, it's a great game to play with people that don't normally play games too.
Yeah.
Because hopefully everybody you know that you would play this with could read, and that's like the prerequisite to playing this game.
Dude, how dare you? Jimmy Jang's going to be so mad at you now.
Jimmy Jang needs to go back to school.
Look, he's been talking about it. He just has better things to do, like make peanuts.
Yeah, those peanuts
Which
are
is
delicious.
something you need to make, apparently.
Yeah. Maybe he's doing the peanut butter thing now.
And jelly time?
Peanut
Yeah, I
butter
can go to hell.
time. Casey,
What?
number 3.
Cutscenes.
Cutscenes, you motherfucker.
What?
How dare you like cutscenes?
I know, right? I wouldn't have thought about this, and again, referring back to the Jimquisition, there was an episode where he spoke about Xenoblade Chronicles. I don't know if you ever saw this one.
I didn't.
But he was praising like the cutscenes in that game specifically because they're kind of like a reward for all the shit you just went through. Like it's like getting to see the next part of the story and watching these characters do like neat shit was like a little respite from the RPG action, and it felt rewarding to like see the next part of the story unfold.
Yeah, it was only rewarding because those cutscenes were good.
Yeah, they were. Well, and that's the like, and I'll fully admit that, like most of the things on my lists, they can be done poorly or they can be done, yeah,
that's
correct.
True. Yeah.
But I think under the right circumstances, cutscenes do have a place in video games. I think they deserve their chance. I don't think they deserve as much crap as they get. Like, I don't think they deserve the stigma they get. Like, because I mean, you tell someone that a game's got like cutscenes, and there's a possibility that they'll just like write it off because it's like, oh, I just want gameplay and all that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I think cutscenes can be very effective at helping, of course, like tell a story. And like in Xenoblade, it'd be like being a reward to the player. Like I used to love like reaching another cutscene in certain like old time PlayStation 2 games just because it was like and I keep repeating myself here, but it was a reward. It was like a really satisfying reward for all the hard shit I did in something like God of War or I don't know, Kingdom Hearts or something.
Yeah, I think the one thing that cutscenes can do is for games that have, well, I mean, every single game has like a limited gameplay loop thing where you can only do so much in the context of the game. But then cutscenes allow you to see your character or the environment or something, do something that the game wouldn't let you do, like that isn't programmed in or whatever.
Yeah, and say what you will, but no amount of like interactive gameplay, especially from that game engine itself, would have made Xenoblade's characters more compelling. It was the cutscenes themselves and seeing them interact with one another that actually like made them so likable.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah. One thing that like I think that has to be said about Xenoblade's cutscene was that, or at least some of them were like kind of really gutsy, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't
true.
like some general JRPG fluff stuff.
Well, and that's just a testament to its writing. And I mean, maybe that's the thing. Like,
yeah, good writing is really important.
Yeah.
Especially for cutscenes.
Since God knows you're not doing anything else in them but watching a fucking movie.
Yeah, that's true. And then some games have like extensive cutscenes. Like, I don't know, I haven't played it, but Metal Gear Solid 4, I heard was like more like a movie than a game sometimes.
Dude, did I ever show you like do you know what Unskippable is?
No.
It was like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 version show where they would like take the opening cutscenes of video games and talk over them.
Oh,
like
okay.
While they're playing.
That's kind of cool.
But they like had to dedicate an entire month of weekly episodes to the opening opening segment of Metal Gear Solid 4's cutscenes.
Damn.
And I think they said that they cut out like a third of all of them.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Is that about it?
Yeah, I'm done. Goodbye.
Right. My number 2 favorite design choice is this is a trope with me. Casey likes this one, I think. But the idea of rebuilding or building a town in a video game.
I'm touching myself just thinking about it.
I know. So the classical example.
Holy shit. Of all the things you could have said then.
The classical example is what we were just talking about, Xenoblade Chronicles.
Hey, did we masturbate Xenoblade enough?
Yeah, Xenoblade episode. I mean, we've talked about it like a few times before, I think, too. But it's just coming up a lot here.
Well, because it's that good of a game.
Yeah. So one of my favorite aspects of Xenoblade Chronicles is at some point in the game, you have this optional side quest to rebuild a town. And it takes up a whole bunch of resources and a whole bunch of time. But I don't know what it is about it, but it just makes, like, I don't know. It's like a story within a story sort of thing, and it makes me actually feel like a hero. Like in the games, like you're always playing a hero and saving the day and shit like that. But that, I don't know. For some reason, that has like sometimes even more impact than a lot of the story stuff for me.
Well, and I mean, it's almost like taking care of a plant in a way. It's like you're putting time and effort into watching this thing that you've been taking care of grow and become better.
And you get like tangible results of of doing a quest in the environment. So like when you did like a certain section, they'd add you did a certain quest for the rebuilding series of quests, then you'd add a whole new section up of the town that didn't exist before. And then sometimes it's functional, like there'll be a few merchants there or something, and you can buy some cool stuff or upgrades or whatever.
Dude, what a shame about X with that.
Yeah, I was really hoping that Xenoblade X, because the whole story of the thing was like humans are resettling or like trying to find like Earth's destroyed or whatever, and you go to a new planet and you have to like establish a colony or whatever, and like you didn't do fucking any building. Like you just stayed in your ship and just like went out and killed stuff. I thought that like you'd build something, or at least like, you know, I think that they talked about resources, like you only had so many resources on your ship, and that was an issue. But it was just like a numbered thing. It wasn't like you couldn't see it, you know?
Well, it's a shame because occasionally the city would like expand in some way, or you'd like see like new races and shit, but it didn't amount to anything.
Yeah. And so also kind of related to this is like on a smaller scale is making your own house in a game. I've always really liked.
Yes.
Like Ben probably remembers this, but when we played Morrowind, like one of the things that I'd always do is almost in every single town, I'd murder like a whole family. And I'd take their house and then I'd just stockpile shit in it.
I want you to try and insert that sentence organically into your next like dinner party conversation.
Meow.
Here I am in Balmora, right? And then
Ben, when did you get here?
Yeah. I don't know, that was always like that was always a fun thing to do in Morrowind. And then like, you know, of course Skyrim lets you have your own house, but then it just seemed so watered down after, you know, murdering people and taking their stuff. That
You've never given Animal Crossing a shot based on what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, but I can't kill people, and I just have to and I just have to gather resources, or maybe be a mayor of a town or something. That doesn't...
The two things required for a symbiotic, like, fulfilling relationship for you. House building and murder.
They go hand in hand really well.
Like, that's why you love building houses out of people's bones now. I get it.
Yeah, I wish I could... In Breath of the Wild, you can make your own house, and then I'm in the middle of the quest of making your own city or whatever. And that's been really cool, because you can store some items or whatever, because there's no fucking storage in that game, really. And I wish that there was more, because of all the stuff that they hand you, you know?
You wish there was more wind?
Yeah.
Don't worry, folks. I'm here all day.
But yeah, that's the gameplay gimmick that I like. If that was in like almost any RPG that I've played, I'd do those quests every single time.
You know what's weird? Like, thinking about it, like, I totally agree with you, and I do like that, but God, I hated it in Xenoblade.
Yeah. It was... The reason that it wasn't that great is it wasn't as good as it could have been in Xenoblade is because the way that a lot of those quests were structured is you just have to gather random shits, and all that they appeared as little like glowy things on the ground, like glowy shards.
Yeah,
and
true.
It was
like
always
you were
random.
Up after a rave.
Yeah, like you could only get a certain item in a certain area or whatever, but that was never really obvious, and you'd have to look it up.
And then you had to pray to the fucking third gods of Gishnu.
Yeah.
On a rainy night on only Tuesday, you could pick up something for a 50% chance of it.
Yeah, that was a real big weakness in Xenoblade, and I hope that they change that for Xenoblade 2. I just
won't.
don't like. I mean, it's kind of okay to run into shards a whole bunch, but it gets real old real fast.
Well, and I mean that was the failing of Xenoblade Chronicles X, wasn't it? Like it didn't have like the other compelling stuff to make us not care so much about that.
Yeah, it was all of the boring shit from Xenoblade Chronicles. They just got rid of all the cool shit.
And added Alma or Elma, whatever the
God.
fuck her name was.
Yeah, yeah. Casey,
What?
what's your number 2?
Here comes. Okay. And just to clarify again, this is my top 5 of design choices I like that not a lot of people seem to. So don't be surprised and come piss in my mailbox or try and tear my heart out for this one.
That seems like a weird choice to piss in a mailbox. I mean, you could just
Oh.
kind of like open it up and then walk away, you know?
What the hell does that do to me?
I'm just thinking
At
about
least-
cleaning it, you know? There's worse things somebody could do.
Yeah, like taking a dump in it.
That would be worse because that's not easy, or not as easy. You'd have to like physically remove the thing.
Oh god, I'm gonna pass out. Okay, my number 2 thing I support over other people is random encounters.
Casey, I'm gonna shit in your mailbox for that one.
Oh no. Oh god. So
Fucking
yeah,
random
encounters.
encounters.
You know, you walk around an open field or dungeon in a JRPG, and it's fucking. Suddenly you go, and you're in a fight, and it's like. Oh god, I've my vocabulary. But anyway, so like a lot of people don't like random encounters, and I think a lot of people will cite Pokemon for this one. But a lot of people don't like random encounters because they're too frequent. They don't make a whole lot of sense when you think about it, and they lend to that monotonous sense of like grinding in an RPG. I think.
Yeah.
Like, am I missing it? Like, what do you think are the?
I'm gonna tell you what I don't like about random encounters.
Uh-huh.
Random encounters are okay until you have to backtrack. As soon as you have to backtrack, it pisses me the fuck off.
The fucking Zubat cave, dude.
Oh, God.
Remember that?
Yeah, yeah. Pokemans all the way.
Yeah.
Going through that thing. And then, like, in, like, Final Fantasy VII or whatever, I remember I forgot something or I went the wrong way and I had to go, like, back and forth between a dungeon a few times and it was just, like, just keep pressing A, just keep pressing A. Or do that thing where you hold, like, the 2 bumpers and run away or whatever.
And you pray to God that like you can make it a few steps, but every step you take, you start getting more and more like, is this the one? Is this the one where it's going to be in our fight? Is this the one?
Yeah. I like with Pokemon, I think it's less egregious because there's a whole bunch of, well, I don't know, like there isn't that much backtracking, and as soon as you get Fly, it's okay.
Yeah. Well, and so like here's the thing. Like I do agree that in certain games, especially ones with backtracking, random encounters are fucking aggravating.
Yeah.
But like the cutscenes and the lives and the difficulty options and the other thing I'm going to mention after this, I think it's a good idea in certain like RPG systems. In certain games, I think random encounters really work.
Yeah.
I think they work best when the fights themselves are quick and just like easily taken care of, or if the fights themselves are at least interesting per se.
Mm-hmm.
And like I bring to mind stuff like Undertale with that, because that features random encounters, but I never minded it because like each fight was its own kind of different little puzzle. I mean, yeah, you slowly work out that you have to use like this certain discussion option with someone, but that doesn't change the fact that in between all that, you still had to do like a certain kind of bullet hell like mini game during the fight, and it just kind of kept things lively.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that Undertale. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
But because they had so much variety in the way that the game played,
Yeah.
that it didn't get like boring and monotonous.
Yeah, well, but the other chief thing is that they like have to be like quick fights. I think make it all right, because if you're just getting a lot of random encounters like in Pokemon, when you like fight like when you went into the Zubat cave, odds are you weren't strong enough to just kill a Zubat in one hit.
Yeah.
So you'd have to go through like a three turn long process of like dealing with each Pokemon you see. And it just became like it took too long and got too monotonous to the point that every encounter was just like, God, stop this already.
Yeah.
But in stuff,
Sorry.
Go on. No, you go on.
Oh, okay. I can't think of the game, but there certain games like when you I feel like I played a game where this happens because I think this is a really good design choice. That after you get to a certain level in one of these RPGs, that like
Earthbound.
yeah, that random encounters wouldn't happen in that area. Like if there was a level discrepancy between you and the random encounter, you know?
Oh, actually, yeah. Sorry, in Earthbound. The encounters aren't random. My mistake.
Okay. But yeah,
But
I'd love to see more games where if you have a high enough level and like if you're level 50 and then there's like level 5 creatures in that area, then they just won't attack you. So you won't have to either like deal with nonsense that you clearly don't want or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an example of how to make random encounters more, palatable.
Yeah.
But a lot of them would scale to your level in those type of games, though. Anyway.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, if you're backtracking though, like, because in Earthbound at least, like stuff didn't like scale to your level. So like, if you went back to the starting town, you'd still be fighting like the same low level things, but they just are insta cleared from the screen when you touch them.
Oh, okay. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, and I thought that's what you were kind of referring to was like just like random encounters are just kind of killed off,
time wasting at some
areas.
point. Yeah.
But like stuff like Final Fantasy VI is another good example, and also on Steam, Artifact Adventure, which a game I quite like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, gotta play that.
They feature random encounters just like Undertale, but again, the fights themselves are quickly done. They're just kind of like you get into a mindless little rhythm, couple turns in, and you're done with the fight.
Yeah.
At least in most cases. And in that sense, I don't mind random encounters because it's just kind of like, swat a little fly and move on kind of deal.
Yeah.
It would be worse if it was like I had to do a fucking 5-minute fight for each random encounter, but I think in short bursts, it's fine.
Yeah, I agree.
The encounters themselves, isn't that technically what the game is just those encounters?
I mean, in older games, yeah, but there's also like story and like management in between encounters and shit.
I mean, if you don't like the encounters, it's a large part of the gameplay since they happen so frequently.
Oh, sure, but that's true for a lot of RPGs, even ones with non-random.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Austin, regale us. What is your favorite?
My favorite design choice is another fucking general ass one.
Okay, great.
And
so 5 for 5.
It's pretty much the opposite of cutscenes. It's when game designers decide to tell the story through gameplay. And I think that it's unique to the video game industry medium or whatever you want to call it. That as a game you can tell a story and the player is interacting with it. There's some kind of interaction and storytelling in pretty much any video game. I mean, there are of course those walking simulator kind of games or whatever, but one game that I think does this extremely well that I'm not gonna spoil is Brothers Tale of Two Sons.
Oh God.
Yeah, that game is just it's so good, and it has the story element that's completely tied in with the gameplay, and it's the best moment in any video game I've ever played. It was amazing. So if you haven't played it, play it. It's great.
If you haven't played it, don't play it. It's all right.
And I think that in general, video games should try and minimize the use of cutscenes and try and tell as much story as you can with the gameplay. And I say that even as a person that is enamored with The Witcher and the Witcher series. I think I I'm fine with all the Witcher cutscenes. I felt the way that Casey was talking about, like, all of those cutscenes felt like a reward to me because I was so enamored in the story and I read all the books and played all the games and I just couldn't wait to hear the next, major cutscene that would happen. But in general, I think that the medium of games should try and stick with what it's best at, because if we, in general, go towards more cutscenes, then we might as well be watching a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then gameplay, I mean, is inherently story. So, like, there's, like, the big story arc for games or whatever, but then, like, you can almost think of, even in, like, the RPGs we were talking about, each individual encounter is kind of like a part of a story, which I think is kind of cool. But most people don't really think about it that way. And then one of the things that I like so much about Zelda Breath of the Wild is that its story is you getting better and stronger to go save the princess. That simple act. So whenever you go do something that makes you better or stronger, like gets 4 shrines or whatever, that's a part of the story because you're trying to, like, that's all in the act of getting to this goal state.
Yeah. For some reason, I don't know, I can see why people like that. A lot of games that, like, try to do the whole, like, tell story through gameplay thing just, like, fall flat for me.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, I need either, like, a reading or a scene-based, like, medium to, like, get certain points across to me or be effective.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, and we've spoken about this before. That's part of the reason why Brothers doesn't enamor me as much, or Breath of the Wild doesn't enamor me as much, is because, like, when certain facets of the story are just being told through certain things, like just like environment or certain, like, missions or whatever, it's just kind of like, okay, I care more about just doing this than actually what the meaning behind it is.
Yeah. Oh, just while you were saying that, I was thinking of another game that I think does story really well through gameplay and that you really like, Metroid Prime.
Yeah, but that's reading. There's a reading component in that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of games you read, like...
Well, that's like, I thought you were talking about gameplay, like...
Oh, as in the actual input or whatever?
Yeah.
Well, I'd still consider that kind of the actual input, just because you have to use your scanner visor to, like, read terminals and other creatures and stuff like that to get their story. Like, and you were saying how you infer the story through finding these things and how the environment looks or whatever.
Yeah, I suppose. Maybe it's just the more offhands approach that I don't care for. Like when there's, like, well, like I said, when there's a lack of the reading or the visual to it.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if games could be really vague if they aren't really explicit in the way that they tell their story through gameplay or whatever. Like, if it's not terribly obvious, then it's not going to come across. But in, like, the case of Brothers, it's, like, super obvious.
Yeah.
And I liked that a lot. Casey.
Oh, yeah. What was I doing? Oh, yeah. All right, here comes the number one thing that I'm pretty sure everyone's going to hate.
But that you like.
I like QuickTime events.
Oh, God. Oh, it hurts. Oh, the pain.
Well, and I think of all of them, this is going to be the most true. QuickTime events are, in general, very poorly executed. They are overdone. They're like CG in movies. They're overdone and they're usually, like, poorly done.
Mm-hmm.
And it just has, like, many years of that has brought upon it a massive stigma.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of the stigma for it. Like games like Bayonetta, Resident Evil 4, even like Heavy Rain, like a lot of the QuickTime events in those games can fuck right off because they're either they demand too quick a reflex, they're too hard to read, or they come out of nowhere. And all that just leads to failure that could royally fuck you up and have to make you go through way too harsh of a punishment for failing.
Yeah.
And that sucks. That really sucks. But there have been certain games that I think have done QuickTime events really well, and I'll cite two, again with the citing.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna need this works cited page.
Okay. Well, how many sites do you need? And can I use Wikipedia?
Anybody can post to Wikipedia.
I know, right? It's the best. But anyway, so one instance where I think QuickTime events work really well is when the designer's trying to convey a sense of a sense of strain, like a strenuous activity in certain instances.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like Wonderful 101.
Yes, or God of War.
Okay.
And I forgot about Wonderful 101, but honestly, I mean, actually, no, the cutscenes in or the QuickTime events in Wonderful 101 are actually pretty good. They're pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I think so too.
But in God of War, like the thing I always point to is there's an enemy type you can fight that's essentially just a Minotaur, right?
Okay.
And when you hurt it enough, you can do a QuickTime event with it where you pretty much force it to give your sword a blowjob.
Yeah, like
very
a glory
bloody
kill.
Yeah, exactly. And in order to successfully do this, you need to mash down the circle button repeatedly. And I like that because as it's happening, you see the Minotaur trying to resist, like he grabs your arms and tries to push you away from him.
Yeah.
And I like the sense of repeatedly having to tap the circle button furiously and fast enough gives it that kind of like sense of like you're struggling against something to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I like that. I think it adds in a very subtle way to like the sense of immersion and just good game feel, if you will. Like it just makes it feel better when you actually successfully do it.
Yeah, I agree.
And then there's another game that I think occasionally does QuickTime events really well, and it's Heavy Rain. Even though I just said earlier that it's a perpetrator of poorly done QuickTime events.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true, because the entire game is QuickTime events, and odds are good if you're going to have an entire game based around that, you're going to have more than a few really bad ones in there. But there's a sequence in the game where you essentially have to drive a car through oncoming traffic. And it's just a QuickTime event like Battle of Attrition, where it's like, press left, press the right trigger, press circle. And each of and like on the screen you see like cars swerving toward you or shit like that, right?
Yeah.
And I really liked that for a couple reasons. One, for the most obvious reason, it conveys a real sense of like urgency. Like in real life, if you were fucking driving through oncoming traffic, you would need instant reflexes to like react to anything coming, and it would be terrifying.
Yeah.
And the QuickTime events in that situation helped lend to that, because it really was demanding reflexes that you would like kind of need in a real life scenario of that. But here's the other thing that I think really helped nail it home for me. Screwing up a QuickTime event didn't automatically spell out failure in that sequence. Like you could screw up a few of them, and it would just show like your character like narrowly avoiding or like swerving his car and having to do something different. And I really like that, because it's like there's a warning that you are getting closer to fucking up, but it's not just an instant fuck you. You have to live with the consequences of one failure kind of thing.
Yeah, that's way better than what Bayonetta had you do.
Yeah, well, and that's and I state this again, QuickTime events are overused and they're poorly done, and honestly they're usually a tactic done by lazy developers who are just trying to put some gameplay into a section that is ultimately just going to be non-interactive.
Yeah, it's like what I was saying, that if it's a game, then like I think that the gameplay should go through or whatever. So people are like, well, we need a cutscene, but this is a game, so let's have some kind of interactive bit or whatever. And that's
the worst kind of attitude to have for that.
Yeah, and the thing that I didn't like about Bayonetta is like cutscenes. Like occasionally there were those, like you were saying with the God of War, where it would be like the final boss of a level, and then you just have to spam the button, and you get to see like this like spectacle thing happen, like this over the top finishing move or whatever, which was pretty cool. But most of the time in that game, it was like these short cutscenes in between sections of a level, and you didn't know if it was just a normal cutscene where you could put your controller down or something like that, or you'd die if you didn't press B in half a second. And then you'd have to restart
It's the
whole
press
thing.
X to not die thing.
Yeah, and because that game is like graded or whatever, and like the grades are, you know, I don't know, somehow important to that game or whatever.
They're important to making you feel like an idiot for trying.
Yeah, exactly. That like you could have a perfect run and you didn't press B during this cutscene and you fucking died, so you don't get a good score at the end.
Oh, that's infuriating.
I know, I hated that shit. But I can, you know, I think you gave some good reasons why there can be good cutscenes. So it's not all just
cutscenes. You did it too.
You know what I mean.
Well, and I'll just state one more time. Like, honestly, the way developers have been handling QuickTime events, maybe they should just disappear entirely. But I'm not going to say that they haven't been well done before. I'm not going to say that they deserve to instantly be written off, because they can be effective in subtle ways.
Yeah.
But you got to be skilled enough to know how to implement them and when to implement them, and a lot of developers just aren't. So maybe they should go away, but I think that they still have a place when used correctly.
And you really like the WarioWare games, and they're pretty much entirely...
Those are QuickTime Event Central.
Yeah, that's just QuickTime events, and there's just like these... It's a whole bunch of, like, that's the whole gimmick with the game, where it's like, random situation, press A to do this random-ass thing, and, you know, the first person to do it, and you win or whatever.
Well, and finally, like, thanks for mentioning that, because I didn't even think about this. Chief among that game's success is the fact that, again, they give you a certain amount of time that's not unreasonable. You get like a couple seconds to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, and if you're doing like main story modes or whatever, it's usually 4 failures and you're done. So you could screw up one and keep going.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable. And then you'll be prepared the next time that you see that, like, scenario or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a pretty good list there, Casey. It's been a little while for us.
Yeah, I had to go learn Pakistani.
How about that?
That's why we haven't done it.
We're gonna start a Pakistani podcast.
Well, no, because I'm extending my food chain there.
Oh, nice.
Thanks. We're
Casey
great
Tots.
at improv, by the way.
Casey Chickens.
Casey Tots. Chicken nuggets.
Yeah. Well,
as they say, Paki.
I guess we're gonna try and get some more episodes out. I think this summer we're both gonna have some time, and we can do a few podcasts for everybody that likes to listen.
We're gonna do one every day, guys, by popular demand.
I think we might slow down maybe to 2 podcasts a month or something like that, because at certain times of the year I just can't swing the 3 or 4 there.
At certain times of the year, I just don't want to.
Yeah. But we'll try and get some more out for all of you people. And if you have any questions for us, if you want to see us do a certain top 5, leave a comment.
Also, what are your top 5s that we did, but in comments?
Oh yeah, all of you should do your favorite top 5s in the for the what you like.
Top 5.
What's your favorite top 5 that we've done? How about the top 5 top 5s?
Did you like the one where we spent 2 hours on the Wii U?
Yeah. What are your favorite game design choices? Let us know. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and we'll talk to you later.
I have a question.
What's the question?
Was Ben actually gonna like do a list or?
No.